call this public hearing to order. Topic is comprehensive plan amendment, housing need analysis. And I'm going to turn it over to our assistant city planner, Jenny Dismo. Associate. Okay.
Thank you,
Sorry,
Mayor.
Jenny.
No, it's all right. So this is a legislative land use hearing. The subject of this hearing is to adopt a housing needs analysis as an addendum to the comprehensive plan. The applicant is the City of St. Helens. Because legislative procedures require the observance of certain procedural formalities, the council must take a few moments to cover some preliminary matters and required statements. Does any member of the council wish to declare a conflict of interest or bias in this matter?
No.
Does anyone from the audience want to object to the ability of a counselor to make a fair decision? Rules for the conduct of the hearing are set forth on the handout in the table at the back of the room. Generally, the order of proceedings will be as follows. Required statements, staff report, applicant's presentation, those in favor, those opposed, rebuttal, and close of the hearing, and then close of the record, deliberations, and decision. The following statements are to be made at the commencement of the hearing. The standard for a decision by the council shall be based on St. Helens Municipal Code 1720-120, Section 1, Standards for a Legislative Decision. All testimony, arguments, and evidence must be directed toward the applicable standards previously listed or such criteria in the code or plan which the person believes applies to the decision. And at this time, we'll go over the staff report. So I just want to take about 5 minutes to talk about the conclusions of the housing needs analysis. But first, as a reminder, the city was selected in the first round of funding through the Department of Land Conservation and Development to fund a housing needs analysis because we have over 26% of our households spend over 50% on rent. So we were considered severely rent burdened. And so this housing needs analysis is to support the data and policies for affordable housing. So the other reason, the last time we did an analysis like this was in 1998. So given the age of this analysis and the housing demands in the last 20 years, this was crucial for us to make informed decisions. So this will put us in compliance with the statewide planning goal for housing, Goal 10. Right now, it's questionable whether or not we're in compliance with that because our BLI, our buildable land inventory, is so old. We've had 4 public meetings on this, so this should not be a new subject for anyone. And with that, I'd like to just point out one table in the housing needs analysis. Kathy? So it's on
Jenny, I don't want to waste trees to print this, but is there a place to look at this, the whole thing? I don't need my own personal copy. I just wonder if there's a link somewhere.
Yeah, so on our planning department page, there's a housing needs analysis website, and this final document's on that page.
Do you know if it's searchable?
I haven't tried to search.
Okay.
Try Googling it. If you can't find it, I'll,
Okay. No, I just meant I can find it on the website. I wonder once you pull it up if you could search certain categories.
Can you give an example?
Like if you wanted to know about apartments or if you wanted to know about affordability, if you wanted to search within the document.
Yeah, the PDF. I mean, you could just do Control F, I think,
Okay.
in Adobe and find, yeah.
Okay.
So this is the table I wanted to just take 5 minutes going over because I think it's really important to realize the acreage we have available. So this first top of the table, it says dwelling units as the title. So this is the 20-year demand for dwelling units within our urban growth boundary for each type of density. So where it says 959, that's 959 units are needed over the next 20 years within our urban growth boundary at the low density. So we need a total of 1,621 dwelling units over the next 20 years. So that's pretty simple. The next section is converting those units into acreage needed. So we need 240 acres to accommodate the 959 dwelling units for low density. So then the next section is how much are we actually providing, or how much do we actually have land available within the UGB? So we have 532 acres available for residential development at the low density level, and so on. So that's land where all of the environmental constraints like wetlands, open space have been removed. And so the final section takes what we have available, that buildable land inventory number, subtracts what we need, and gives us either a surplus or a deficit. So you'll see we have a surplus of 397 acres total for residential land, which is quite a bit. So what does that mean? Well, we're probably not going to expand our UGB anytime soon based on the need for residential land. We could potentially make an argument that there's a need for other types of land, maybe, probably be very complicated and time consuming. But this number is pretty much solidifying that in the next 20 years, we have enough land. The one deficit, so for high density, it says we're short by 8 acres. I wanted to point out that commercial and mixed use category, the 19 acres, could accommodate those 8 acres needed for high density. Which would bring us up. And also in our buildable land inventory, we actually have 126 acres available for commercial and mixed use, but we applied a 15%, because not all of that will be developed as residential because it's mixed use. So you could see commercial development. So we applied a very low percentage just to be safe and got to 19. So we actually have a lot of acreage available for commercial and mixed use to accommodate just that 8 acres of deficit. So there are other questions about this, because this is the main conclusion or the main numbers that that were developed out of this year-long effort. No?
Thing I have is probably a 10-year plan instead of a 20-year plan.
Why do you say that?
I think it's going to grow faster out here than we think it is.
Yeah, their population growths are just based on PSU's
Right.
numbers. Yeah.
So, creatively thinking about UGBs and trying to expand them, you said, and we could talk about it at another time, but you said there's other unique ways of asking for why you're wanting to expand. Correct?
Yeah.
I mean, it's difficult in the first place, and it's a process. It takes a long time.
Yes. Yeah. I think I remember you saying your quote from Senator Johnson.
Like her turning it into a ballerina.
Yeah.
Yes, moving your UGB just like that is like her turning it into a ballerina.
Well, how many years does this work on it for the airport?
Yeah, that's a good example of
Good
how
words.
The whole
complicated
time I've lived out here.
and difficult. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, if there are no questions, then I think we can be ready for testimony.
Yep.
Jen, just one thing, is a cottage cluster concept for residential, does that fit into the high density area or mixed use?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we haven't developed a cottage cluster code yet. That is something we want to develop by 2020 is when we're shooting for it. And it depends on what density you apply to it. So since we don't have rules for it yet, it could be anything from medium to high is the examples we've seen. It could be low too. We've also seen them done pretty low density.
With the word cluster in there, you've seen them low?
Yeah, well, the example and there's an example DLCD gave, and it was actually on the lower density end.
Oh, I see.
So they range quite a bit. Because you can have a lot of open space surrounding and then have kind of a cluster of housing, but still be on a lot of land.
Well, thanks for answering. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
You can go ahead and open it up.
Okay. Is there any testimony in favor of this? I should also note there was a letter given to each of you. It was entered into the record from Columbia Health Services.
In favor of. Right? The way I
In
read it?
support, it was kind of in support of affordable housing. It was just mostly noting that housing affordability affects health.
Yep. Could you please state your name for the record?
I can't help myself. Jacob Gratian, city planner. So, what this is going to help with us with is make decisions. When we have zone changes and stuff like that, basically this says we should give our high density zoning a little bit more love. And so when it makes sense, when it's compatible with the surrounding neighborhood, and that's always going to be important, then we should yield to apartment residential
It'll help
over
reinforce that.
other things. Yeah. And then if people are saying, yeah, why are you doing this? You know, it's not just anecdotal. We have adopted numbers that support it. And as Jenny said, you know, our plan, ideally we would have had time to figure out code amendment stuff, but because this was state funded, it was just, okay, here's your contract, go get it done, and you have to get it done by this date. So it was just boom, 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 and it was torturous. It was very torturous because at the same time we were dealing with all the development going in town, but also the Riverfront Connector Plan.
Yes.
But when we saw the opportunity, I mean, I said some words in my mind, but it's like, God, we have to do it, because our stuff was so out of date. And part of it's, so when we're doing these kind of things, people aren't saying, how can you make a decision like this? So now we have something to support it.
I have a question regarding code amendments. I know you're in the testimony section, but can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Okay. I know that just through the process, you usually bring code amendments to the planning commission or to city council. And I wondered, given that this packet, these findings, if it would warrant, or if you've ever approached code amendments, like by having a conversation with maybe a builder or another planner or a planning commissioner member to see what areas if we have problems with, just to get other feedback, you know, to just have like a work session. Because just for me, I've heard in the community from builders and developers that maybe that they would welcome to give feedback, that it wouldn't affect their building process. And I know planning commissioners have wanted to be part of the process.
Goal 1, citizen involvement. That's the first goal. And because, you know, we're just running around like chickens who, you know, sometimes doing ideal citizen involvement is challenging because receiving input and all that stuff, it's very inefficient. And I mean, Jenny and I, we've talked about this stuff, and we have ideas about, you know, we know our code is pretty old school, and we know there's a lot of resources out there. But as I've thought about this, you know, I want to be able to, for this department to take this project on and do it right, which includes, I mean, we've had some input already from this, and that's a good starting point. But to have more opportunities for input as we shape these, and it's not only the builders and stuff, but it's the community. You know, one person may have an idea, but what does the community feel? And you represent the community. And so I'm just going to, you know, let's say, well, let's have a star cluster, and that's just made up. So I'm not picking on any kind of development. But if the community goes, well, we don't want those star clusters here, you know, then you're probably going to be like, well, you know, maybe that's not the way to go. So, yes.
So is this something that is like a winter thing to do?
Well,
We tend to do code amendments in the winter.
winter's good, and it's going to be a matter of what happens with everything. I mean, the Riverfront Connector Plan is about wrapped up. Hallelujah. And this one's about wrapped up.
In the middle school, I'll leave your plate.
And so the way I kind of see it, and like the build grant, which was a huge thing Jenny was working on, and what I'm kind of, the roadmap in my mind is we still have some large developments we're dealing with. The middle school's coming to a close, but you still have the
Other stuff.
one big apartment complex, the new big apartment complex coming in. I think I have another larger subdivision potentially coming in. And we're going to have to see how it goes. I'm hoping that it's a winter thing, and I'm hoping that, you know, if we make a pie graph out of our daily tasks, you know, there's the daily stuff, there's working on current planning, answering questions, but there's always a slice for projects. And I'm hoping that, well, on the short term, some of that slice is going to be the city stuff, because we have all these properties now, and there's been industrial park projects, Jacobs Mountain projects, and Millard Road property projects, and some of those are
Pending.
moving, but a little more at a molasses pace. And so what I'm hoping is that, you know, we get this stuff done. Some of these big projects, I mean, eventually we're going to run out of big parcels in town. And then once we get some of these city project stuff done, then we can really start focusing on these amendments. And if you recall, one of the things I had mentioned, I think it was at a council meeting, is because,
Yep.
sorry,
Yeah, we're getting out in the weeds. Jenny led you down the trail. Though.
Yeah.
I completely
but
agree.
but
Jenny.
but because it shows that we have a 20-year supply, this is an opportunity for us. It's an opportunity to look at our code and add more opportunities than just the old school stuff that we have, so we can grow into our urban growth boundary, which frankly we're lucky to have a surplus of. We can grow into it more responsibly as a city. And that's my hope in working on these code amendments, is to do it, because we don't want to, you know, we did this housing needs analysis 5 years later, we're starting to work on it now. I mean, it's really something to be responsible. We want to get on fairly quick, just from the stance of, okay, we adopted this, what are you going to do about it, city? You know, how many times you've heard that, but also so we get it in place in time to grow responsibly. So that's all I have to.
Super, thank you.
Thank you, Jacob.
Jacob, could you use 2 more people in your department? It sounds like you're getting overloaded and we're getting held back because there's not 72 hours in your day.
We could always use, I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. If we had more people, you could do all kinds of things.
Because it almost sounds like you're beyond your limit right now. It's acting responsibly for getting stuff done really well.
It's challenging.
He's not bored, that's for sure.
I'm not bored, yeah.
Yes, you could use help, yes.
So basically, the long and the short of it is what Jacob was saying when he first opened, is that he's in favor of, and this gives us the ability to reference why we make some decisions as him as a city planner. So there you go,
Us as a department.
an associate planner.
Yeah.
Well, Jenny Dismo, and I'm going to turn it back over to her because she's running this meeting.
Do we have any testimony in favor of the application? Do we have any testimony in opposition? Then we don't need a rebuttal?
No? Okay.
You can close.
Yep, this hearing's closed. Okay, we're just gonna take 2 minutes to get Kathy to get Graticus flipped over here.